is that after this 16-month period, when they're going to start to try to draw down the size of the portfolios of these companies, they're going to officially are supposed to be paying back the U.S. government. But where is the money going to come from when they've been basically ordered by the government to buy all of these toxic securities? Their capital reserves aren't going to be just like, oh, Uncle Sam, here's $200 billion back. Thanks for the loan.
Right.
It's
right. Oh yeah,
it's
we're never going to get back.
Like
it's absolutely no. I'm sure there'll be some sort of policy or reason, or that we're told that we're not going to get it back. Just to put things in perspective, we talk about the increase in the size of government. One thing, and we're going to get to this a little bit later in the show, actually fairly soon, because one of the purposes of this particular episode, we wanted to focus on the conventions last week, in particular the convention that Ron Paul had in Minneapolis next to the Republican National Convention, sort of as a counter-convention, they were calling it, to advocate his ideals, one of which is a much smaller government. And so we talk about something like eliminating the income tax, which would drastically reduce the number of funds that the government has to play with in this sort of situation. So what if you did eliminate the income tax in general? Well, you'd have a government that's 40% smaller than it is right now in terms of the level of funding that it receives. And when was our government 40% smaller than it is today? A lot of people think a long time ago, well, no, it was 1997 that the amount of spending that our government has was 40% smaller. That's 11 years ago. That's not so long ago. So you talk about things accumulating. It happens very fast and often quite blindly and behind the backs of the public attention, where most attention is focused. Yeah. So
I think we should, to introduce this, and specifically the Rally for the Republic, we have a short video from was it Neil Cavuto or?
Oh yeah, Neil Cavuto. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we could run that now.
All right, well, they got an all-star lineup of the Republican convention tonight. You got Mitt Romney, you got Rudy Giuliani, you got Michael Huckabee, and, of course, Governor Sarah Palin. She's the coup de grace tonight. But you don't have Ron Paul, and his phone's not ringing. It's not that he's happy or sad about it. He just had his own shindig because they kind of turned him off here. 10,000 people strong, going nuts for Paul yesterday at his Rally for the Republic. Now the congressman's saying that this party, is slighting him. But you got here, Congressman, so I don't know whether you're wearing a fedora or mask or whatever you got here.
Yeah, nobody said too much to me.
Yeah, but did they obviously recognized you. Did they say anything?
I think they just like to pretend I'm not here.
Oh, really? One of these things, they just turn around, yeah.
Why don't you go away?
So it's not as if they avoid you, but they avoid you.
Yeah, I do. The best way I can describe it, it's not hostility, it's like, let's avoid the embarrassment. And I'm not looking for embarrassment, I'll tell you. But I think what I talk about is really very conservative Republican principles I think we should adhere to. And for me to suggest that maybe we don't adhere to them and we've missed our chance and we're in trouble and our party is getting smaller and we should have a program that appeals to young people, and I've offered this, it seems like, hey, how do we handle this? He doesn't want to endorse what we're doing, and yet a lot of young people are coming his way. So it's a difficult decision for them to make.
Did it ever personally bother you? I think they try to relegate you to the crazy uncle. You know what I'm saying? And no disrespect to him, but that they thought, all right, he's a fringe guy. And then they saw how much money you were raising on the internet, how much appeal you had, in particular with young people, and they just said, well, he's not so crazy, he's not so fringe, now what do we do?
I think that's pretty well put, and I think that's a common practice to take what our group talks about and say kooks or fringe or extreme or something like that. But isn't it unusual or sort of weird to say that somebody who says we ought to obey the Constitution, we ought to balance our budget, we shouldn't print money when we need it, and we should live within our means, we shouldn't double the size of the Department of Education, things that Republicans have talked about for a long time.
So you were the one who argued a long time ago. Look, you guys are the one who abandoned the party, not me. I'm going back to what our roots were.
I think
but
so.
Now John McCain is trying to broaden that up to, and by picking Governor Palin, he's trying to reach out beyond that base. You argue that's not the way to do it.
I don't argue against it. I argue that we need a sincere outreach. I mean, you could pick a person, But will she be able to rein him back in? Will she be able to get him to repeal McCain-Feingold? I mean, something that our people would like. Would she be able to get him to sort of back off on the Patriot Act, or would we be able to rein him in and say we don't need more troops overseas? We need a more sensible defense of this country rather than pretending we can defend the whole world like the program that George Bush ran on in the year 2000.
Let me ask you, Congressman. I mean, if you had your druthers, because you know what people say about you and third parties, extended parties, libertarians, they just rain on the parade of the two party system. You've heard that rap. I know you're against that. But do you think that there is a difference between Democrats and Republicans? And at the margin, do you favor one over the other?
No, I'm much closer to saying there's no difference, because I look at foreign policy. There's only one foreign policy of intervention in world empire. Monetary policy, neither one's even talk about it. Protection of private liberties here at home. Obama pretends to be better, but he isn't any better. Balanced budgets. Republicans didn't do a better job. So I come up, these are the important issues for me, and there is no difference. You know, we're not going to have a change in foreign policy. They're not going to address the subject of where the financial bubbles come from and why we have housing bubble collapses. They're not going to address this because they're not interested, and sometimes I don't think they even understand how bubbles form. So I wouldn't expect any change in policy with either one. The difference is between the two versus the other. So many of us have come to the conclusion that two parties have been blended together, and that the political election of presidents over the years have turned into a charade. I mean, just think of the conventions going on. $33 million of taxpayers' money to propagate, you know, this propaganda that they have, and they're not deciding on the nominee. It's already been done. I mean, we had a pretty nice rally here and spent several millions of dollars, but no taxpayers had to pay any money for that.
And I understand the food was fantastic, so it's a shade of you. All right, Congressman, very good seeing you. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Be well, sir,
you.
okay?
Appreciate it.
Tiptoe out of here, okay?
I love that last part. My favorite part is the fact that both the RNC and the DNC spent $33 million of taxpayer money. Personally, I pay taxes. I didn't want any of my money going to those conventions, so why was money taken from me to sponsor those two conventions when, as Paul just said, the nominees had already been decided on?
Yeah.
It seems like an enormous waste of money, but an analogy I usually give to people is the difference between earning money and getting money in a birthday gift card. If you get $50 from your grandmother versus earning $50, which do you spend more wisely? You spend the money that you earn much more wisely. But all the money that the government has is money they got in a gift card labeled taxes. They're very frivolous with it, and they can just spend it as they please. So $33 million is no sweat off their back. Whereas Ron Paul had a rally that was bigger than the Republican National Convention, and it was all through donations, through people that really believed in the message, that wanted to travel and go to such an event. So
yeah.
You're going to talk about his campaign.
No, and definitely that $33 million is just the money that was directly allocated through the Federal Elections Commission to each party to host these things. That doesn't count the $50 million that each convention got because it was designated I think a Homeland Security special event. Yeah. So that the Minneapolis police and the Denver police and the conventions got an extra combined $100 million from the federal government to cover security at the conventions, which was just ridiculous.
Which actually turned out to be pretty rough too. There were some reporters who really got hassled very violently. Yeah.
And Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! was arrested. There's some good videos if you want to look online of her being